Christian Scientist Stephen Meyer went on Piers Morgan's show, and as we know, Piers Morgan is very, very good at talking nonsense. He decided to press him about God, does God exist, and all of this because of what exploded and what Tucker Carlson said on the Joe Rogan show. So let's watch the entire video. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll tell you guys everything on the back end. All right, God bless. Let's check it out.
Last week, as Tucker Carlson went on. This all blew up last week as Tucker Carlson went on Joe Rogan. And I don't know if you saw this, but he said this about this very issue. Take a look.
If evolution is real, and if there is this constant, I don't know, but it's visible. Like you can measure it in certain animals.
You can measure adaptation,
yeah,
but there's no evidence that evolution. In fact, I think we've kind of given up on the idea of evolution. The theory of evolution, as articulated by Darwin, is like kind of not true. Right?
In what sense?
Well, in the most basic sense, the idea that, all life emerged from a single cell organism and over time, and there would be a fossil record of that, and there's not.
And it's called a theory.
Well, I don't know what Tucker knows about all this, but
probably not as qualified as you. But he likes to.
Maybe we start with something that happened here in London a few years ago, 2016, major conference convened by the Royal Society, arguably the world's most august and prestigious scientific body, was convened by a group of evolutionary biologists who are dissatisfied with the standard neo-Darwinian theory of evolution. And many of the conveners are calling for a new theory because the primary mechanism of biological change articulated by Darwin and his subsequent followers, now called the neo-Darwinists, the idea of natural selection acting on random mutations and variations, is now understood to lack the creative power to generate major changes in the history of life.
And is the crux of this debate, is it, as Tucker was getting at there, is it that if you actually start from where Darwin's theory begins, the creation of the human being was so complicated, the body, the way we exist is so complicated, it doesn't make any rational sense.
There's two issues, really. There's how do you get to the first life from the simpler non-living chemicals? That's sometimes called chemical evolutionary theory, and that's a complete mess. It's in a state of impasse, and almost everyone, even your recent guest Richard Dawkins, acknowledges we have no chemical evolutionary theory that accounts for the origin of the first life. And many people don't know that an attempt to explain the origin of the first life. Rather, he presumed one or very few simple organisms, which we now know were not simple, and then proposed a mechanism by which you could generate all the new forms of life we see on the planet today. But even that now is being challenged because the main mechanism of evolutionary change does a nice job of explaining small-scale variation. What Tucker was referring to, I think, is adaptation. This would be examples like Darwin's finches, where the beaks get a little bigger, a little smaller in response to varying weather patterns. But it does a very poor job of explaining the major innovations in the history of life, such as the origin of birds or mammals or animals in the first place. And there in the fossil record, we do see very abrupt, many instances of very abrupt appearance without the transitional intermediates that you'd expect on the basis of the Darwinian picture of the tree of life.
So, is your belief that the Darwin theory actually fails then?
I think it does fail. I think it captures an element of the truth. There's the small-scale microevolutionary variation is certainly a real process, and no one disputes that. Natural selection is a real process, but what's at issue now is the degree to which it has genuine creative power. And I think at this 2016 conference, the opening talk was given by a prominent Austrian evolutionary biologist, not an American talk show host, and he enumerated 5 major explanatory deficits of neo-Darwinism, many of them surrounding this problem that the mechanism lacks the generative or creative power necessary to account for the major innovations in the history of life.
Well, your best-selling book, new book, Return of the God Hypothesis, you argue there are 3 big scientific discoveries that point to the existence of God. I want to go through these. One, the Big Bang Theory. So why would that lend support to a theory of a God?
Well, right. Maybe just a little framing before I dive into the evidence. Professor Dawkins at Oxford has said that the universe has precisely the properties that we should expect if at bottom there is no purpose, no design, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. And though I'm on the opposite side of this science v. God issue with the good professor, I think he does a marvelous job of framing key issues. And this is one of those great framing quotations. Because what he's saying is that that whether we think of it as a scientific question or a philosophical question or both, if we have a hypothesis about reality, the way we test that is by looking at the world around us and seeing if what we see comports with what we would expect to see if our hypothesis were true. And his hypothesis is that of blind, pitiless indifference, which is a shorthand way of saying that everything came about by strictly undirected material processes. And what the materialists expected coming into the early 20th century was evidence of an eternal self-existent universe, one that had been here for an infinitely long time and therefore did not need an external creator. What in fact the astrophysicists, the cosmologists, the astronomers found was evidence of a universe that had a definite beginning, and therefore one that could not have created itself, because before the matter of the universe came into existence, there was no matter there to do the causing. And so the picture of the universe that has emerged starting from the 1920s all the way to the present, both from observational astronomy and from theoretical physics, is a universe that had a definite beginning and therefore requires some sort of external creator or cause.
Dawkins is obviously one of the world's most famous atheists. Are you a believer in God yourself?
I do believe in God, yes.
Okay, so let's play a clip from Dawkins on this show.
Here we go.
So why is it not possible that there is a superior being, power, which many people believe in different ways?
It's possible there are fairies at the bottom
God.
of the garden. I mean, all sorts of things are possible. You can't deny that.
Well, except I've never seen fairies at the end of the garden, have you?
No, you've never seen God either.
No, but you don't know for sure that either doesn't exist.
No, I don't know that fairies don't exist. Fairies may be leprechauns, for all I know.
You know, my big question for all atheists,
To pause it right there very quickly, it's crazy how they resort to like clowning or funny stuff when they don't have an answer. Well, of course, I mean, it's almost like me saying Shrek exists in real life. I mean, it's a cartoon. They always resort to that. I mean, you believe in leprechauns and fairy tales. Oh, okay.
Okay, you don't believe in God, but what was there before the Big Bang, before this all started? In other words, what was there before supposedly nothing? What is nothing?
Question.
Nothing to me seems to be a totally incongruous word. What is nothingness? And if you can't explain it, to me, and I believe in God, but to me, it suggests there must be a power bigger than the human mind at the start of all this that was able to comprehend what may have happened, because we can't.
Right. Dawkins wants to portray theistic belief as if it's equivalent to belief in fairies. And he'll concede that, well, it's possible. But I think there's a stronger argument for the theistic case. And that is that when scientists and philosophers reason from evidence, they typically use a method of reasoning that has a technical name. It's called inferring to the best explanation, where the best explanation is one where you're invoking a cause which has the kind of powers that would be required to explain the phenomenon of interest. And you correctly pointed out in your conversation with him that when you get back to that, what physicists often call the singularity, the point where matter, space, time, and energy begin to exist, the materialist is really up against a huge conundrum, because prior to the origin of matter, there is no matter to do the causing. That's what we mean by the origin of matter, that's where it starts.
Right.
And so if you want to invoke a cause which is sufficient to explain the origin of matter, you can't invoke matter. It's in principle, the materialistic explanations are in principle insufficient. Something which is external to the material universe and is not bounded by time and space as well. And that starts to paint a picture of the kind of cause you would need that has the sort of attributes the traditional theists have traditionally associated with God. God is a timeless, God is outside of time and space, has causal powers, is an agent with volition, and therefore can initiate a change of state from, in this case, nothing to something.
And do you believe that God...
100%, because for time to exist, you need to be outside of time to be able to create it. You can't create yourself trapped in a box. It's impossible, because you're not in the box. So I can't be created within the box because I am not in the box. It's crazy that you have to explain all of these simple, and I say simple because it is simple, but you have to make all of these people who know, all of these scientists, who know so much, like they pride themselves because I'm a genius, I've got a degree in, I studied Scientology, I studied this, but yet they don't understand something so simple as, wait, So if you're telling me the chemicals existed and then that's what came together to create a Big Bang, so what existed before the chemicals? Well, it has to have been more chemicals. What? So what existed before those more chemicals? Well, duh, a bunch more chemicals. It's like, what is going on? So for everything to come together, for the Big Bang to take place, something needed to have existed before that. There needed to be a trigger, something that caused it. Who was that and what was that? Well, they're stuck. Well, you know, leprechauns. They start talking about leprechauns. You can't make this stuff up. So it's clown world. Really, it is really clown world. It takes more effort for me to believe in evolution and Big Bang than it takes for me to believe, oh wait, if I have a mom and dad, if I have someone that, or two people that came together and then I was created, that means there was a creator. Like I was created by somebody. All right? Here on earth. I'm not talking about God. But it took for someone to, I want a child. And then boom. There I was, there you was. So if that's the case and we're finite, we've got a beginning and an end, does it not make sense if, I'm not saying there is, but if speck of dust, if there was a creator, he would need to exist outside of this plane of existence, just like the mother and the father who created me had to have existed outside of the belly or the mother's womb. They couldn't have existed in there with me because it's impossible for them to, you get the gist. So therefore a child saying, I don't believe mommy exists or daddy exists because I can't see them and I'm in my mother's womb, is irrelevant because your mother exists. In fact, she's carrying you right now and you don't even know it. So we'll call it quits. We'll call it a day. But yeah, that's what's up basically. So let me know your comments in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you guys are enjoying this fire content. I am, because these debates are just going to get hotter and hotter. If you are serious, link is in the description down below. If you want to change, in fact, if you want some holy gains, you want to make some holy gains, because I've been getting a bunch of comments about that. Bro, you're ripped. You're this, all of this stuff. Thank you. It's all glory to God. It's not even me. It's not even me. It's not the Big Bang. Okay, it's not the... How'd you get your muscles? Oh, it's the Big Bang. No. I didn't just walk one day, oops, fell, bumped into some muscle. You get it. You get the gist. So the world wasn't just, oops, Big Bang. Oh, here I am. You can't get order out of chaos. I'm sorry, you can't get order out of chaos. Poof, explosion, all the trees perfectly organized, all the delicate butterflies perfectly created from a Big Bang. Make it make sense. And in fact, Charles Darwinism, as it's called, or Charles Darwin, whatever his name is, he was a Freemason. If that doesn't... I'm going to end it right here, guys. God bless you all. Bye-bye.